Hi, it's Jo at Willie Cottage. I forgot my name then. I'm gonna do just a dye video today, but from the raw fleece to the dye pot. I've had a couple of people asking me, oh, how do you do this without it felting? How do you do this? I washed it with fairy liquid and stuck it out in the line, and like, you forgot to rinse it. So it's just simplest little things like that. You know who you are. It was funny when you said it. So I thought, you know what, it's been a while since I've done a video like this, so I'll do another one. So already in my sink I have got my hot water sat there, and I have a thermometer. It's going to tell me now, it's hand hot. It could probably do with being topped up a little bit more, but that's currently at 40 degrees Celsius. So if you haven't got one of these glass ones, you can actually get them from World.Guru for a couple of quid. That's where I got mine, and it came in my very first dye kit from World.Guru. Or even something as drastic as that, everyone's got one in the drawer, a jam, chutney thermometer from Talar. But you can get them for a couple of quid at your local supermarket anyway. So just grab yourself one of those next time you go shopping. I could probably do with topping that up and having it a little bit hotter, but this is my first stage. This is just what I call my warming and loosing section before I start adding any detergents or lanolin removers to the water. So I'm quite happy with that temperature at the moment. It's just going to loosen any loose dirt. It'll start opening up the molecules that's in the lanolin on your fleece. Now I've got two that I'm washing today. I've got one Wensleydale short curls from the fleece that comes from the East Coast, and it's really dirty, so the water will get really dirty really quickly. Look how dirty that is. But this is just a short curl, and I have got my my Wensleydale from Lancashire, and this is my first cut long locks. So I'm doing both of these today because I've got new bats blended up for next, not bats blended up, I've new rovings dyed for bats for blending for next week, and I want these locks to complement those, so I'm doing those colours for them. One's a pastel unicorn. I'm doing techno unicorn as well. Hopefully I'll be able to do that today, but the weather's looking a bit dodgy, but it's too warm to have the fire on, so I'll see how my day goes. And I'm doing the enthusiastic peacock. So you know my prissy peacocks and my posh peacock. This one's a little bit louder than the usual ones. So I want the colours to reflect those, and whatever locks are left over will be going on the website next week. So potentially you could have 2 more new ones, maybe 3. See how generous I'm feeling, how much I get washed today. So I'm just going to take out these ones. Now these are relatively plain and they don't take much work, but I'm going to put them all in together. So I'm just going to take a batch out. There we go. So that's more than enough. So I'm just going to plonk that straight in there. And I've got some left over. Stick that to one side. This one's a bit of a fight because it is literally on the fleece. And it's slightly felted or matted in certain areas. So I just pull out small clumps of this one. Little handfuls. And this is what I always say to people. People say like, oh, the fleece, it takes for ages, and I've got it light, I can't get it washed or dried, or it takes too much of it. I'm like, well, why don't you just do smaller, more manageable batches? And that way, unless you're making a rug, there's no reason for you to wash the entire fleece in one go, unless you're going to do the Suinic method and leave it in a bucket covered over for a period of time. I just think domestically it's just easier to do it this way. And if you bodge up on your colours, when you're dyeing later on, you've always got some left over, and you roughly know where you are if you've got a local supplier, a local breeder that you can get hold of these on a regular basis. At least you know where you're at and what you need to replace at a later date. So I just do smaller batches, handfuls, tear it off from a fleece. Look how dirty that is. Honestly, it gets absolutely filthy in the water. So I'm just going to take off more manageable pieces. A lot of this Wensleydale and these short curls, I don't end up with half as much as what I'd like because quite a lot of it is matted. So I just take off apart, so I need that piece of paper. And just put them in. And once I cut and trim these later, once they've been dyed, I don't end up with the biggest locks because it is quite matted. And I end up with lots left over, which I just put into textured bats later on. So I'm just going to put in a little bit more, I think. I need to save some because I've got my breed study to do at the end of the month, and I was doing it on this Wednesday day. So I need to save a little bit of it. So there we go. I think that'll do. So I've got that in there. I think I've got some BFL left upstairs, so I might drag that down later on and get that washed at some point. So there. So it's sat in the water. You can't really see. It's not brilliant, but you can see it's in there. And I'll just give it a quick push down and a gentle swirl just to help move that. I mean, I'm not agitating it at all, and the water isn't hot anyway, as in like overly hot, so it's going to felt it. So that is filthy already. So I'm just going to leave that like that for about 20 minutes, and then I'll come back and we'll fill the sink back up again. I'm not going to do it with the running water. I'm literally going to go to each phase at the beginning as I'm rinsing it off, and then come back once the sink's filled up because it's really noisy. And you don't want to listen to me pouring water. You might end up needing a wee. There's nothing worse. So anyway, there we go. That's that in there. I'm going to leave that for 20 minutes. Come back, put in hotter water, and I'll give you the temperature that I end up settling with, that I'm happy with on that, and the detergent that I use in there as well. So that's been 20 minutes. I've done that first pre-soak in just water, and already this is the shorter fleece. I'll just give it a quick squeeze, gentle squeeze, and look already how clean this is in comparison to what it was when I put it in. It was filthy and black and covered in mud. So definitely do just a lukewarm 40-degree hand temperature heat, absolutely no problem at all. And that's for any fleece, not just me doing long locks. My camera's slipping. Doing fleeces with curls that I use for doing my locks. I would do this with any fleece that I'm processing. Do the pre standard plain water soak just to loosen off the majority of that dirt, and you will find it makes your job so much easier. Oh, so I'm just giving it a really gentle squeeze just to get the last of that water out. I mean, I just give that a quick squeeze as well. And not just that, having this packed over in this corner as well means that when the water's dropping into the sink, it's not actually felt in the wool. So I'm just going to clear some of this dirt out of there. Push my tap down again. Wait for that water to heat up. And I don't put the detergent in yet. I wait until it's full up because I don't want loads of stuff in there. So I'll just put you on pause while I just wait for this tap to fill up. Just gently loosen the dirt in some of those longer sections. Loosen that up and then they'll come out a bit more. So I mean, look how clean that is already in comparison to what it was before. There's the shorter locks, and it's nearly white now. It's very much clean. I think I'll get away with just doing a rinse after this. So as you say, I'm just going to leave that in there for about 20 odd, maybe 30 minutes. You don't want the water to go too cold. You don't want to leave it for an hour, because by that point any lanolin that's still left in that water will start to adhere to the staple length, to the fibres of the wool again. So you're back to square one. So you will probably have to do another detergent wash after that. So by the looks of that so far, I think I might get away with just 2 rinse washes afterwards, depending on how clear the water comes out. And then it'll be on to the next stage, which is dyeing. So I'll come back to that when I do the next section. Hi, right, so I'm at the last stage now. So I've done warm plain water to remove lanolin and dirt. Then I've done my second one, roughly about 50 degrees, so a bit hotter than your hand can take, but not too hot that you can't leave it in there for a few seconds to do a quick swirl around to help loosen up those fibres. And I've rinsed that away, and now I'm on my last stage, and that is averaging about 45 degrees, which is plenty. So anywhere between 40 and 50 degrees, if you've got a thermostat, or as hot when your hand starts to tingle, then that's more than hot enough for you to do. To be fair, most boilers in the UK only allow you to get to a certain temperature anyway, or you can have it set for a certain temperature that it comes out your tap at. So if you wanted to do that and adjust your thermostat on your boiler, then you can guarantee what temperature you're going to come out your water for doing this. But otherwise, don't bother, just grab a thermostat. You can get them for £1 or so. If anyone's got any young kids, you've got one sat in a drawer that you've not used for years, use that. It makes no odds, it does the same thing. So I've got now more fibres coming, bits of VM longer grass loosening up, because there's nothing to cling on to anymore apart from the wool. All the grease, I would say, is probably about 85% disappeared, if not nearly all. And it's looking really, really clean. There's some bits in there that's still a little bit clingy, but that's in the I'll tell you around a bit, sorry. This shorter fibre is more blondie, but it is clean. I can't feel no lanolin in there. It feels like pure wool. But I always find as well, when I put it in the dye pot tray, any of the remaining dirt will disappear anyway. And it's probably age stain as well, because I don't think this was a shearling, so I would expect on a shearling to be almost white. So this is an older sheet anyway, so I'm not expecting it to be completely perfect. And as I say, once I start dyeing on it, you'll not notice that some bleached blonde areas on that fleece. And where's the Teeswater, the Wensleydale long locks? They're in here somewhere. One second. So that is perfectly white. So that's looking really, really good. So all in all, I always say, I think 3 washes, as long as you do that pre-soak at the very beginning without any detergents in there, 3 soaks is generally it. So that's about an hour and a half just to get to this stage, which is not a full day, which is always a bonus when you work to a time scale. So I hope that info helped you out. I'm going to let these sit for another 15-20 minutes, and then I'm just going to go and sort out my dye pots and get my dyes all ready. And if you want to join me for that section, then you're welcome. And I'll see you in a bit. Right, so I've done the rinse off there. It's all sorted. It's all looking lovely and clean in the tray. So I'm quite happy with that. And my process, I just find it easy to work with that hour and a half, and knowing that I can go off, do what I need to do, come back, rinse and repeat 3 times. You may find that you want to do 2 rinses at the very end, but for me, majority of the time 1 rinse does fine. You want to get that water as clear as possible, so you could very gently just run it through a really, really slow tap and just rinse off that excess dirt from the cloud that's in the water. But just a quick second rinse in the water, just leaving there for a few minutes and gently swirl it around. As long as you're not agitating the water, the fibres, it'll be fine and it won't felt. So next is doing my colours. So honestly, I'm just going to move you around a little bit, if I can move you any further. So these ones, fluff in my mouth. These ones are for my pastel unicorn bat that I'm listing for Monday. Oh, I've got a bit of fluff in my mouth. So it's all these baby colours. So I'm using a pastel yellow, a pastel green, a blue, a bluey purple, and a pink. And I think I've got a peach in there as well, just to add in an extra colour. So I'm just going to sprinkle it. I've got all my windows open, my back doors open for ventilation. I know I should have a mask on when I'm doing this, but I'm videoing and I'm talking at the same time, and it's just not practical. And I'm only doing a little bit anyway, so I will be fine. For anybody that leaves any comments, I have been pulled up on it before, but I was in a live chat and I can't do a live chat with a mask on my face because I can barely understand myself. So I'll point you down so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just doing a sprinkling of different colours in different areas. Nothing No stripes or anything like that. So I'm just sprinkling some purpley blue over here and putting another splodge over there. I'm not doing it overly because I want them to be more pastel than I do bold tones. So I'll just leave that there. And then next one is a soft green. Sprinkling of that. Splodge over here as well. I have to just keep in mind that I'm using 6 colours, so I need to make sure that I've got enough spaces for them to all fit in together. Some peach in that corner. I'm just going to turn my heat down a little bit because I don't want it to saturate in before I even had a chance to mix it through. So that will do on there. I can always top up if there's any patches that haven't quite covered yet. So less is more. Sometimes if you put too much of the pigment in one go, it just blends into each other, which is fine. But if you wanted a lighter shade, then just a little bit is all you need. Take that off there. I personally like it when all my colours mend into each other. It gives a really nice variable on the tones. So I've got some soft yellow here, so I'm just going to sprinkle it there and in there, more than likely turn green, and a little bit more in that section over here. And then I've got this pink to come over. Sprinkle that over in this corner. Down there, sprinkle a bit down near that peach and over where these blue colours are. Make sure I get right over in the backs of these. As I can always come back and add in a bit of colour on areas that are looking a little bit bold. So I'm just going to use my tongs and hold them at the back of my tray and just make sure that that dye is penetrating all the way to the bottom. So there's a bold bit there, so I might go back and add a little bit of peach or something to that later, or even a bit of green, because I don't have much green on this one. And I do have green in the back. So just twist this around in this corner. But once all the colours start to meld into each other, they will create their own separate tones, which is exactly what I'm looking for. I think I might stick some pistachio over in that corner there. Let's go back. One of the first ones I did. Grab my little spoons and just sprinkle that over there in that corner and do a little bit more over here. There we go. And that won't take long. Here we go. So I'm just going to leave that until it saturates. I will probably turn it around full circle because all my heat's down this bottom end of the pan. So I'll probably turn it around in about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Once I know most of this area has been saturated, give it a flip round, get this side all proper heated up properly. And then that's generally it. Then I'll put it in the sink to wash off. So I'll leave it there and I'll come back to you in a minute when I get to that stage. So this is just about done. I've given it its turnaround, just waiting for the last of this dye stock to saturate into the fibres. I'll just turn that down a little bit more. So what you need when you're putting the liquid in, I hear a lot of people say this, especially about yarn as well. If you're speckle dyeing yarn, you don't want too much water in there. You want enough just to sit on the tray and for the water to saturate into the fibres. And you genuinely don't want too much liquid in there, otherwise the dye is going to float around. If I was using this tray and I had yarn in here, I would literally just have the base sat with water, maybe about 1/2 centimetre, put my yarn in there, and fill up the tray. Usually I can fit in, if I'm doing them on my knitting oddy, or if I'm doing manufactured yarn from a local supplier, I will probably fit about 2, maybe 300 gram skeins in this one tray. And with that, probably 1/2 centimetre, nearly 1 centimetre depth of water. Once it's soaked up and I pressed it down, I've got my citric acid in there, or you can use vinegar. But citric acid, you won't get any smell from that. Then you're left with your skeins. You can see just the top here, the water's not over the top. You can still see the defined curls on the fibres, and that's genuinely what you want. If you want your colours to float around, or if you're just doing one colour, that's fine. Have it as deep as you want to get a full saturation of a solid colour. Within reason, I mean, you only want half a tray depth to be able to complete that anyway. You don't want it filled to the top because there's no point. All you're going to do is dilute your dye stock and end up with not a bold colour, or if you're doing a pastel-y colour, then you're going to really water that down. The more liquid you have in there, the less power that you're going to have from that dye. It's not going to be as bold. So when I'm dyeing like this, my house is tilted, so the top of my tray is actually shallower compared to down the bottom. So that I'm quite happy with. All those colours, those were sprinkled in with the dye, and I've ended up with some really nice tones in there, some lots of saturation and blending of colours. So I'm really happy with them. They need to be rinsed through. I've just taken them out the sink because the next lot's got to go in there, and I'm not going to waste water. And the water is really, really clean in there. The dye hasn't saturated and bled out at all, because I was really controlled about how much dye I put onto the fibres. So there you go. It looks really, really cool. Love the colours. Exactly what I was looking for. Now, this is why I say less water is best. Because you can't control where the dye is going and floating around. Now, because I did this as a dye stock solution and added it to a very, very small amount of water that was in the bottom of the tray, there's been a lot of bleeding, and I'll show you now. So this is a rookie mistake. If I'd done this and more controlled with sprinkling the dye powder straight onto the wool with that same amount of saturation of water that was in there, then I wouldn't have this result. But I've lost a lot of colour. I've lost a lot of my yellows. There's still a touch there. My turquoise isn't as bold as what it was, and I've ended up with a lot more green olives. Now I'm quite happy with that, because I've got yellow locks up the stairs that I can add into this mix for listings anyway, and for adding with the bats that I've got to go with this for next week. So at the end of the day, it's a happy error, but I definitely advise, if you can sprinkle, do it. It's more controlled. If you need more coverage, then you can always add it. You can flip your locks over once the water's all clear underneath. The water is actually clear up the top. It is clear, but down the bottom it's not quite there yet. It's been in there for ages, but I don't want it's nearly done, but I'm definitely at that stage now where I'm quite happy to bring it out. The wool's definitely saturated as much dye stock as it's going to take. To say, these pigments that I get from Adelaide Walker are really, really strong, so you don't need a lot, and those dyes will last you for a long time. So yeah, I'm going to take these out, stick them in the sink, leave them there just to chill out for a little bit. Make sure your water's lukewarm, or at least a bit warmer than lukewarm, so that when the wool goes from this pot in a second, I'm just going to let it cool down for a little bit, and any heat left in there, to the residual heat from the dye solution, will hopefully penetrate, but I don't think it's going to take any more anyway. Let that come down a little bit in temperature so it's not scalding. Put it into the water. As I say, make sure that your rinse water is hot or touch hot, because then you're not going to create a cool hot reaction, which will felt you will. So you want to try and keep them comparatively the same. I mean, ideally leave this for an hour or so to come right down to room temperature, but then you want your water at lukewarm. You don't want that hot, because again you'll create that same heat cold, hot cold reaction, and it will felt some of your wool. But yeah, that's all the advice that I can give you for that. There's not much else I can say. So I'm just going to leave this for a few minutes, let it really calm down, and then put it in the sink to rinse. And that's generally it. There's not much else I can show you after that. I could show you that the water from taking that lot out is actually clear. So that's clear water from the last of that wool. So it just, as I say, it just shows that if you just have more controlled environment over your dyeing, and really think about that, if you need to make a bolder colour, you can always add that little bit extra. But sometimes some dye companies, the dye pigments are very, very strong and can take a little while longer than say something like a Dharma dye. The bolder the pigment, the longer it's going to take for it to saturate into your wools, is what I've found over the years. But if I don't use as much and I find that it's not bled all the way through into the rest of the fibre, then I can always flip them over and put the same amount on the other side, especially when talking rovings and yarns for the same reasons. And don't use a lot of water, otherwise it will just, those dyes will just flow into each other. You'll lose the colour saturations that you're wanting to keep and hold bold. I wanted that originally to be gold and olive and turquoise with 2 tones of purple, but now I'll have to root through my stash upstairs, pull out some yellows and golds that I've got in locks in the Wensleydales, and add that into the mix, because I've lost that now. I think the turquoise is fine, and I've got a lot more green in there than what I was expecting, but then I can always take some of those greens out for my Halloween ones that I'm going to do hopefully next week, if not the week after. But I need to get an order of Wensleydale and Teeswater in again before those need to be sorted. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial or that video, or whatever you find information out of there that's handy, or stuff that you didn't realise. But yeah, if you give me the thumbs up please, it really does help people find me on the algorithms. If they can't find me, people can't subscribe, and I really could do with people subscribing, because I do this from the goodness of my heart. I want to share the knowledge that I have and what I've learned over the last 4 years, and pass that on to somebody else. There's not many fibre creators out there that will do this, just sharing knowledge. Yeah, so thanks, thumbs up, hit that subscribe, you can click on the bell and it'll let you know when I upload new content. And don't forget, every Saturday at lunchtime on Instagram I do a live chat. I am debating whether to do one in the evenings during the workday on YouTube. If you'd like me to do that, then just give me a comment down below, and I can sort that out. And even if I just sit there weaving and spinning or whatever I do in my own spare time when I'm not blending fluff up for you guys. Take care, see you soon.